So today we're going to take a look at mosaic plots and how they are related to segmented bar graphs. So here we're just going to kind of walk through this example and build a mosaic plot. We have data on teachers and students and then what they would prefer or vote for their favorite mascot to be. So we're going to start by making bar graphs, one for teachers, one for students, and then just use their favorite mascot. So I'm going to go ahead here and do everything for the Rams in red. So teachers, 80% preferred Rams, and then 10% preferred Falcons, and another 10% voted for prairie dogs. So we have a bar graph for our teachers. We're then going to do the same for our students. Students, 30% voted for Rams, and then 60% voted for Falcons, and 10% for prairie dogs. So then question 2 says, complete the third graph by taking each bar from the teacher sample and stacking them. So we're going to make a segmented bar graph. So for my teacher bar over here, if I take the 80% plus the 10% plus the 10%, that's going to get me to 100% of teachers. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the 80% of teachers that voted for Rams, and then stack on top of it the 10% for Falcons. So it's going to get me up to 90% of the teachers, and then stack the final 10% that voted for prairie dogs, so up to 100% of the teachers. I'm then going to do the students. So for students, we had 30% that voted for Rams, and then if I stack on top of it the 60% that voted for Falcons, and then on top of that the 10% that voted for prairie dogs, that's 100% of the students. So then here in question 3, according to your displays, which mascot appears to have the most support? It looks like overall the Rams had the most support. It was the highest proportion of teachers by far. And then we still had a decent proportion of students that voted for Rams. So now if I go down my page here to question 4, it says here that students argued the decision to choose Rams is incorrect because they had 100 teachers surveyed and 500 students surveyed. So now we're going to use that breakdown to put in the actual number of teachers and students that voted for each mascot. So for the teachers, we had 100 of them. 80% of that 100 chose the Rams, so it's going to be 80 teachers here. And then 10% of the 100 teachers chose the Falcons, so that'll be 10 here. And then 10% of the 100 teachers chose prairie dogs, so it's going to be another 10 here. Then for the students, we had 500 students total, and then the percentage for the Rams there was 30. So 30% of the 500 students is going to be 150 here. And then we have 60% of the 500 students that voted for the Falcons. So that'll be 300 here. And then we had 10% of the 500 students. So that'll be 50 for prairie dogs. So now how many times more students were sampled than teachers? So 100 times 5 gets us to 500 students. So 5 times more students than teachers. And we can update this third graph over here to reflect that difference in sample size. So basically, if you have 5 times more students than teachers, the bar for students should be 5 times as wide as the bar for teachers. So I really can just make it 5 times as wide. Now, I don't need all of those vertical lines in there. It was just easier for me to try and kind of appropriately scale the same width. So I can just go ahead and extend this. And then do the same for the prairie dogs up top. And if I wanted to be consistent, I can go back and color in my teacher graph as well. And so now the last question on the page says, what should they make the EK mascot? Well, if we look now, proportionally speaking, this is a much larger area in the Mosaic plot. We're looking at the numerical breakdown. 310 overall chose the Falcons, which is the majority. We had 310 out of the 600 surveyed. So here we're going to say Falcons. So the majority voted here for this category. So 310 out of 600 would be that total percentage. So now on the second page, the top of the second page where there's that box, we don't really need to fill that in. That's just a place for you to write any notes if you would like. We're going to go ahead and take a look at this check your understanding question for Mosaic plots. So we have another example. This time we're looking at employment status along with grade level. And so we have the Mosaic plot. We're going to go ahead and calculate some proportions here and just see how they tie to this Mosaic plot. So here, proportion of juniors that are in each of the working or employment statuses categories. We do need the total number of juniors. So if I go through and I take 14, 22, and 15, that total is 51 juniors. So for currently working, that proportion is going to be 14 out of 51. So that's going to be about 27%. And then not working, but have had a job, that's going to be the 22 out of 51. Oops. Which is going to be about 43%. And then never is going to be 15 out of 51. So that's going to be 29%. We can do the same for the proportion of seniors. So again, we need this total here. So that's going to be 80 seniors, if I take that running total. So currently working is going to be 30 out of 80. So that'll be about 38%. And then not working is going to be 40 out of 80, so that'll be 50%. And then never is going to be 10 out of 80, which will be about 13%. So these numbers are directly related in this Mosaic plot. So here you've got the 27% of juniors that are currently working. That's the height of this bar here. If we stack the 43% on top of the 27, that takes us up to about 70%. And then that remaining roughly 29, 30% is stacked on the top. And then these aren't adding exactly to 100% just because of rounding. And then the same thing down here for the seniors. So the 38% stacked on top of that is the 50%, stacked on top of that is the 13%. This bar is less wide than the senior bar because we had 51 juniors and 80 seniors. So really that breakdown, this is going to be much wider because proportionally speaking, there are more seniors than juniors in the study. So down here in part C, looking at an association between grade level and job experience. So if there were an association between the two variables, we would expect these two bars, I'm sorry, if there were no association, we would expect these two bars to be the same because the grade level is not going to influence employment status. But here we do see a difference. We do see grade level influencing employment status. So that tells us that there is an association between the two variables. So we'll say there appears to be an association. And again, the reason for that is because the bars are not the same. And so you can just draw to an example here. So 50% not working for the seniors is much higher than the 43% not working for the juniors. Or you can talk about the 13% that have never had a job is much lower than the 29% that had never had a job for juniors.